because we haven't got that much time, I want to get onto a totally different topic. You've got a book on feminism coming out, and I believe it's got quite a subtle title.
Book's already out. I think it came out 3 weeks ago.
Oh, sorry.
It's called Feminism, Myths, Lies, and Ungratefulness.
I just love that. It's just no messing about. Yeah, I like your pro shame idea, by the way, as well, that we need more shame. But I like both these ideas. And so what's the book about, Nick? I mean, sounds a ridiculous question.
Yeah. Well, to begin with, the first 2 books I published on courage and then one on begging, I got publishers to do that. This book, I couldn't get a publisher to touch it. I had to self-publish, and it was the title. So I self-published on Amazon, which I'm going to do from now on. It was easy, and I can sell the books at half the price than what a publisher was selling them for. So my book's available on Amazon, on paperback and Kindle. So what's the book about? The book really is exploring ground zero of the wokeness we've got at the moment. And the ground zero is feminism from nearly 200 years ago when it started. And it came out of the slavery movement, the anti-slavery movement. And so I talk about the history of it. I explode some of the myths and the lies, like the gender wage gap, about men being, violent. Did you know that women commit more domestic violence than men?
I did, but only because I follow Pearl Davis's Twitter account.
Yeah. So I list the studies. I talk about the studies. And this isn't my opinion. Everything I say, I back up with evidence. I then, talk about how it's damaging women. And I end the book by giving examples that men are not the enemy of women. So this book's not about attacking women. It's about attacking an ideology called feminism. But the last chapter just shows what men do for women, the inventions. Have you heard of an Indian guy called Padman?
Yeah, the tampon.
Tampon king of India. I talk about him. I talk about the men who invented the mammogram machine, the men who invented all these things that improved women's lives. Not everyone's lives, specifically women's lives. And I'm tired of feminists always accusing men of being evil and being persecutors. Men risk their lives every day. Who do you think shouts women and children first in emergencies? It's not women. Men shout that, and men will assault other men who do not abide by that. Men are always protecting women and children because that's our innate role. And we need to call out feminism more, and women need to call out more, because we've had feminism policies now all my lifetime for like 60, 70 years now in the UK, in the West. And every year we get more and more feminist policies. And guess what? Every decade, women report more and more unhappiness. Men's happiness has stayed the same in the last 70 years. Women's unhappiness is increasing every decade. More feminist policies, more unhappy women.
Yeah, it does seem that way. And it is changing a little bit to where the kind of hatred of men is turning around a little bit, or it's being forced to be reckoned with, because people like Andrew Tate, of course, have started to have a massive influence. And then we see all these articles, oh, the young boys need to stop listening to Tate. He's turning them hateful and evil. It's like, is he responding to the hatred against them for decades? I mean, are you seeing that? You've worked with a lot of young people. How do you find that young men feel about these things?
Men love women. Young men love women and will protect women. I've been on street corners where, teenagers have almost got into violence over what another young teenager either said to a girl in the group or pushed her. And you risk violence putting your hand on a girl because that's a male trait. Andrew Tate, I've not heard much of Andrew Tate, so somebody may come up with something I disagree with that he said. That's a given. But what I've heard, I don't disagree with anything he said. What's wrong with Andrew Tate is the same thing that's wrong with Tommy Robinson. It's not what they say. What people don't like is the messenger. It's not what they say, because what they say is usually quite mainstream and, sometimes a bit provoking and could be saying a slightly better way. But it's not the message. They just don't like the individuals, so therefore attack the individual. But men need to start being men. And that's what I've been telling young men now, late teenagers, for 2 decades. Stop being a pussy. Women don't want pussies. That doesn't mean they want you to be a thug and beating people up. but don't be an inferior version of a woman, because nobody wants an inferior version of anything. So when a woman tells you she wants you to open up and cry and be emotional, she's an idiot. She doesn't know what she wants. Because the second you cry in front of her, the second she'll lose all respect for you. And the second I'll lose respect for you as well. Because men don't cry. And I'm tired of men talking about suicide, talking about we need to open up more and we need to be more like, it's like, no, 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 no. That's what's killing men, is being more like women. You know, men will stop committing suicide when there's more roles in society for them, when they're not being hounded all the time, when they're not being persecuted. That's when men will stop committing suicide, not when they start acting more like women and opening up and doing group hugs and singing Kumbaya. If I had to do that, I'd want to kill myself.
Well, you've got the next book title, Stop Being a Pussy, by Nick Buckley. That's so funny. But no, I totally agree. A great point you made about men being an inferior version of women and crying and stuff. A lot of that stuff is, I do believe it's kind of a test from women. They'll say they want certain things, but you're actually not supposed to really go along with them. You're actually supposed to resist them and prove you're actually more of a man. You actually, we're not supposed to buy into this thing. Yeah, it doesn't help men to cry more and be like women. It helps us to lean into masculinity and be more like men. But the other thing that springs to mind when you say that inferior version of a woman is the trans thing. I wonder if you cover that in the book, because there's a claim from the TERF side, and obviously I agree with the TERF side on most points, but what they tend to do, which is a radical feminist side, but what they tend to do is, or so-called, what they do is blame men a lot. They say, oh, it's the men trying to get into changing rooms and blah, blah, and they mean the trans thing. And I think it's not really men, it's a tiny percentage of men. And I believe it comes from feminism. Once you say a woman is just like a man and women can be in the army, women can do everything men can, well, why can't women be men and vice versa? Ultimately, to me, that's where it leads. So to me, they're barking up the wrong tree when they say, oh, look at this men again. To me, it's like, no, it's not men. It's a few weirdos on the far left. And it's actually come from feminism. Do you agree with that?
There's a whole chapter in the book. So there's a chapter in the book called something like A Legitimate Concern. So I actually talk about the trans issue because it's the only legitimate concern that some feminists have now, with the radical feminists. So there's a civil war within feminism at the moment. You have progressive feminists who are pro-trans, and you have radical feminists who are anti-trans, using their spaces. But radical feminists, it's a bit like choosing between Hitler and Stalin, who you want as your friend. Do you know what? You want neither. Radical feminists may be on the right side around the trans issue, but radical feminists hate men. The reason why they don't like trans women is not because they're trans women, it's because they're really men. That's why they hate them. So this issue has come out of feminism. Feminism spent years, as you just said, telling men, be more like women, masculinity is toxic, be more like women, the moisturize, pedicure, or, be gay, you're one of the girls. And then some men realized it's tough being a man. There's no benefits of being a man. I have all the downsides with none of the positivity anymore now. So if I think I'm a good man, but all men are evil, I must be a woman. So I'm going to be a woman. And then there's loads of feminists out there go, yay, you're a woman now, come into our spaces. Men did not invade women's spaces. Trans women did not invade women-only spaces. Trans women were invited in by progressive feminists.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And but I suppose the fair term is gender critical feminists rather than radical feminists. But yes. that's what they use. But I totally agree with that. And they do seem to have this hatred of men. So yeah, we agree on this topic. We're sort of strange allies. But really, the way they always just say it's men, I always think it's barking up the wrong tree. And they say it's misogyny. I just don't believe the root is misogyny. I just believe the root is leftism and feminism getting out of control. And yeah.
Let me say something controversial. No such thing as misogyny. Doesn't exist. Never been proven. Talk about it in the book. I highlight so many social scientist studies and reports that's actively looking for misogyny in men and can't find any at all. And all their results come back basically saying men prioritize women over other men. They then did studies on women looking at misandry. They can find misandry in women because women will put other women above men. So misogyny does not exist, which is the hatred of women. No man hates all women. Some men hate particular women because we hate that person, but no man ever hates all women. Doesn't exist. And when we use the word misogynist now, what we mean is sexist. But we've stopped using the word sexist. And do you know why? Because men started using it against women. That's sexist to a woman. So feminists then went, oh, they've appropriated our magic word now. Sexist. We need another word. Let's reappropriate misogyny. Let's change the meaning of misogyny and let's see if men can use that against us. And so misogyny now just means sexist.
So what's the difference if a man's being sexist or he's being misogynist?
Well, the technical definition is sexist is treating someone differently because of their sex. We do it all the time. There's good sexism and there's bad sexism. Misogyny means a hatred of all women. And a man's never existed who hates all women.
All right, love it. Misogyny doesn't exist.
Yeah, doesn't exist.
Very based.
If you like that video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell and comment. And if you like what I'm saying about running for Mayor of Greater Manchester, then stick around. Tell your family, tell your friends. The only way I'm going to have a chance of winning is a grassroots movement. So be part of that movement and hit that bell. Thanks.